time to have no fear. I will tear up every book of rules. I was born to be brave. There's a revolution on.
Hello, everyone. My name is Vinay Nagpal, and I'm the president of InterGlobix. We are a global consultancy and advisory firm focused on the convergence of data centers and subsea cables. We are glad to collaborate with Telxius, and I'd like to welcome you today to the Telxius Virtual Summit on the topic of subsea data center convergence. We held a similar virtual summit around the same time last year, which was focused on the Virginia region and the subsea cables landing there. Today, our focus is going to be on the Derio Communications Hub in Spain, where two subsea cables are accessible currently, the Maria and the Grace Hopper cable. Subsea cables are the lifeblood of the digital economy, and the data centers are the engines. Our daily lives are dependent more than ever on this digital infrastructure, whether you're watching a movie on Netflix, sending an email to a business partner, or connecting to the Zoom meeting for that matter. We are using a data center, we are using a subsea cable all the time. From telemedicine to online education to connected cars to drone delivery of our groceries from Amazon to our Facebook and Instagram posts, we are living in a constant hyper-connected world, and any application we use, we are leveraging a data center and subsea cables. Well, we have a great program ahead of us today, wherein we will be hearing from various speakers about the importance of subsea cables and data centers as part of the digital infrastructure. Our program for the day includes a few guest speakers from Telxius, who will be giving us an overview of the company itself at a high level, and then more specifically about the Derio Connectivity Hub. That will be followed by a panel discussion where we have experts from Europe participating in an interactive discussion covering the subsea data center convergence and the Derio Connectivity Hub, looking at Southern Europe region overall. I'd like to encourage all of you to ask questions during the panel discussion. And just so you know, this entire session is going to be recorded and will be available for video replay after the session as well. To kick off the program, I'd like to hand it over to Carlos Darcy, the Chief Technology Officer of Telxius, to give us an overview of the company. Carlos, over to you.
Thank you, Vinay, and thank you, Joel, for joining us today in this webinar regarding our Telxius Derio Communication Hubs. Just to remark that here in Telxius, as part of our evolution, and as you are probably aware, we started to be with our infrastructures in Latin America, basically because, well, in the past we were 100% part of Telefónica Group, and we serve our Telefónica business units in Latin America with our submarine cables and one. After that, we deployed the PCCS and so on. But somehow, when we decided to make the spin-off of Telxius and start to open our stakeholders to other companies, we decided to move our footprint and started to do things in Europe. That this is something that in the past we always bear in mind, but unfortunately we didn't do. And now we have the infrastructure regarding Marea. That was our first submarine cable that we decided to deploy jointly with Facebook and Microsoft, that is landing in Sopelana in Bilbao. Once we start with the business in Europe regarding that, now we are on net, let's say in Europe, we decide to build up our Derio Communication Hub. Our Derio Communication Hub is a mix between the power of a landing station with all the connectivity that can provide this submarine subsea cable. Also, we are combining with the traditional, let's say, backhaul, trying to extend our services through, in this case, through Madrid directly, that now is on net in our network, and also Paris. Coming soon, we will extend our network footprint to London and also to Frankfurt. And also, we are combining now the capabilities of Nguyen in Derio. At the end, we are providing a diverse route between the States and Europe using both systems, with different access in Paris, Madrid, and Derio, and also combining in Derio the traditional, let's say, services in the landscape of the data centers as the colocation and the hands and eyes and so on and so on. But well, just this a small picture about Telxius evolution, and now I leave the floor to our marketing director, Monica Martinez. So Monica, please.
Thank you very much, Carlos. Thank you very much, everyone, for having your time with us today. I would like to provide you a little bit more insight on Derio Communications Hub, basically on our value proposition. At the end, Derio facilitates the leverage of our full potential of our subsea cable Maria and connects it to the main hubs in Europe, such as Marseille, Paris, London, Frankfurt, providing our customers with high levels of interconnection. It is a communication hub which is carrier neutral, and it offers an open architecture that has been designed to ensure that every carrier, hyperscaler, cloud, or content provider benefits from its cutting-edge services and its high interconnection capacity. It features Tier 3 specifications. And basically, just to give you very brief features of numbers, it has over 2,000 square meters distributed in 2-floor facilities with 750 square meters of colocation space, up to be able to allocate up to 300 racks with over 4 megawatts of power and running everything 100% on renewable energy. As you see in the slides, is located in the northern part of Spain, very strategically located to be able to connect our subsea cable Maria and Untitled with basically with the rest of Europe, and connecting and being able to contribute to making Spain as one of the main European communications hub. And most important, it is our customers who are relying on Derio's Communications Hub services, which are hyperscalers such as Google, as well as very relevant carriers and players of the industry as well, Telia, Euskaltel, Sipartech, Colt, Lyntia, or Exa, among others, who I would really like to personally thank for taking their time today to be here with us in this webinar. And now I would like to hand over to Vinay to begin with what we believe it will be a very interesting panel.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Monica, and thank you, Carlos, Darcy, for your opening remarks. Very much appreciated. And as I was mentioning earlier, Derio is coming up to be a significant location when it comes to the convergence of data centers and subsea. The picture you see on the initial slide here is actually a picture of the Maria subsea cable, which is the first subsea cable to land in Virginia, coming from Spain. And this subsea cable is what has been a catalyst for the region for economic development and growth, in addition to offering a lot of opportunities for businesses when it comes to connectivity across the Atlantic Ocean. If you look at what's happening around us, right, the internet traffic is growing exponentially. FCC has issued a statistic that 99.7% of all international traffic traverses over subsea cables, and in the last 2 to 3 years, the amount of data that's been produced constitutes to around 90% of all the data that exists today. So that should give you a perspective of how much the data explosion or the data growth is happening. And by the end of this year, it's predicted that there will be roughly anywhere from 20 to 30 billion devices connected, and that comprises of, by the way, new application use cases such as cloud services, edge data centers, IoT, connected cars and connected homes, 5G, AI and ML as well. So we'll see more and more adoption of these different use cases. And what that is doing is it's actually enabling the data center industry to grow as well. And at the same time, the connectivity, so on the connectivity standpoint as well, there's more and more subsea cables. We see that a resurgence of sorts taking place, where you have in the last 4 years, roughly around $14 billion of new value creation, 107 new subsea cables that have been deployed. And even ongoing resurgence is such that there is currently roughly around $8 billion plus of new development underway. And these subsea cables that you see on the slides have existed for over 163 years. And the significance is such that they represent over $10 trillion worth of daily transaction. By the way, that's triple of what the US spends on healthcare annually, and it's greater than the combined GDP of Japan, Germany, and Australia. And what we have noticed, off late is that more and more hyperscalers are investing in subsea cables, including the Maria subsea cable, which is a joint venture between Microsoft, Facebook, and Telxius. And what's happening around us from that perspective today is that on an ongoing basis, more than 40 subsea cables have been invested in by hyperscalers, where you have these high capacity systems which are offering low latency across different parts of the world. And what it's also giving the hyperscalers and the industry is extremely fast connectivity when it comes to even deploying newer technology. There is the cable manufacturers such as Subcom, ASN, NEC are going for higher count cable, anywhere from 16 to almost now 24 pair repeated subsea cable systems are put in place. And then you have newer technologies with enhanced DWDM and space division multiplexing, which is really a new design that allows these pump lasers and optical components to be shared across multiple fiber pairs. And the capability of these systems is such that enables extremely high capacity, which exists. For example, the Maria subsea cable offers over 200 terabits per second, which is approximately, when you think about from a capacity perspective, is enough to transfer every movie ever made in 4K from Virginia to Spain in 42 seconds. The Dunant cable is upwards of 250 terabits per second, across which you can transmit the Library of Commerce digitized 3 times over in a second. So it kind of gives you a perspective of these extremely high capacity systems. And what this is leading to is, this chart here shows you the global internet hubs as depicted by Telegeography, an independent research firm. And there are currently designated 10 global internet hubs, out of which 8 are subsea ports where you have subsea cables landing. And that's not a coincidence, because if you think about it, that subsea cables are what are carrying the traffic back and forth across countries and across different continents. And you see a natural convergence happening there from a digital infrastructure and data center perspective. The focus of our discussion today is going to be on the Derio Communications Hub, as we have already heard from our guest speakers, Carlos and Monica, at a high level. And I'm glad to be joined by an extremely expert group of panelists from across Europe who are with us today. And what I'd like to do now is to engage with them, and I'd like to have each of the panelists give a quick introduction about themselves and tell us a little bit about where they fit into this entire ecosystem. Why don't we start with Carlos from Telxius. Carlos, if I can have you, Carlos Casado, if I can have you give us a quick introduction, please. Over to you.
Yes, hello, my name is Carlos Casado and I am head of sales in the EMEA region, based in Madrid. And my colleagues have been talking about the recent evolutions of Telxius network. I will have the opportunity to go deeper into details during this panel. And just thank you to everyone for joining the session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carlos, for being with us today. Next, Jamie from Colt.
Hello,
Jamie,
good afternoon. Yeah, sorry. Good morning, good afternoon. Sorry to all. I'm Jaime Ginás. I'm running the operation from Colt here in Spain. I'm delighted to be here today, just to collaborate in this webinar with our dear colleagues from Telxius. And I'm based in Madrid. And welcome to everybody.
Jamie, can you tell us a little bit about your role, where you fit into the ecosystem as well, please?
Yes, well, we're trying to do, I'm running, as I said, the operation here in Spain from Colt, and we are trying to, connecting all these type of interesting things. We are in the hub in the market, really. We are building a lot of, we are experts on the connections, and we are trying to get advantage of all these new places that are going to start to spread across geography, especially in the Iberian Peninsula, that is becoming a very important hub, coming the traffic for many places, right?
Absolutely, it indeed is. Thank you so much for that perspective. Next, I'd like to hand it over to Guayo Abounza from Euskaltel.
Yes, good afternoon, Binay. Thank you very much. I'm going to present myself. I'm the manager for wholesale of Euskaltel. Euskaltel is a local convergent telecom carrier in the Basque Country, in the north of Spain, Basque Country, Asturias, and Galicia. And has been recently acquired by MásMóvil Group, the first Spanish telecom carrier. No. At this moment, Euskaltel is integrated as a brand of the MásMóvil Group, and we offer services to a market of 2 million people here in the Basque Country, where the hub, the Telxius Derio's hub, is located. And we have a unique footprint reaching 1 million business units that are all of them located near just 100 kilometers or less from the Telxius Derio's hub. No? In addition to this, we offer wholesale services, both infrastructure and transport, including dark fiber, 100% underground ducts and transport capacity, and also co-location. So to resume, we are the perfect complement and a good local partner for the global carriers and hyperscalers that require dark fiber or local tails with route diversity and low latencies.
Absolutely. Dark fiber is extremely important when it comes to the entire ecosystem of digital infrastructure and connectivity. Next, I'd like to hand it over to Steve Roberts from Exa Infraestructure. Steve.
Thank you, Vinay. Yes, Steve Roberts. I'm responsible for product management and network investment at Exa Infraestructure. We are a dedicated infrastructure provider. We just provide 4 products. We're very focused on dark fiber, wavelength, co-location, and technical services. And we operate a 103,000 kilometer network that spans all the way from Eastern Europe through Western Europe to the East Coast of the US. As you probably know, we operate 3 transatlantic cables, 8 cables in total, and we operate 17 cable landing stations. While we're quite a new brand, we're only 3 months old. We were spun out of GTT. We've got a long history in providing infrastructure services, especially in partnership with Telxius. We've had a 20-year relationship with Telxius. We've been in Bilbao for 20 years. More recently, Sopelina and Derio, we were one of the early providers into those locations. Under I², we're intending to invest a considerable amount of capital in further network investment, and one of the areas of focus is the Iberian Peninsula. So we've got a number of new projects planned in the region, both across Spain and also in the Derio and Bilbao area. And yeah, we're looking forward to working with all the partners here today on some of those projects as we move forward. Thank you.
Absolutely, Steve. Thank you for that introduction. New brand, but very mature assets, as you said, coming out of GTT. So you've got some great assets there. Next, I'd like to have George Rama from Lyntia give an introduction, please.
Yes, thank you, Vinay. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, Telxius team, for inviting Lyntia to this webinar. I'm Jorge Rama, and I'm in charge of the transport business unit at Lyntia. Lyntia is a Spanish neutral carrier with an FTTH branch with almost 2.4 million home passed, and with a network branch with almost 45,000 kilometers of our own fiber cable all over Spain. In total, we manage a 50,000 kilometers fiber network to provide to carriers and hyperscalers dark fiber, capacity circuits, and co-location. In the transport business unit, we deal with national carriers as well as with fibercos, towercos, and some strategic customers. And what about the sector? At Lyntia, we think that with the explosive traffic increase due to 5G and to the digital world, the content will be needed closer to the user, and so more connectivity, more big Tier 3 data centers, as well as smaller regional data centers will be needed.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for giving us that perspective. Richard from Sipartech.
Thank you, Vinay. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Richard Nguyen, Director of Product Management and Development at Sipartech. So we're a telecommunication infrastructure company that deploys fiber across France and a neighboring country in order to reach the FLAP and Madrid and Milan and more. We focus mostly on dark fiber and high bandwidth connectivity, but also with other telecommunication services. What I do, especially on the long haul, is to focus on expanding our network on routes that are unique and diverse on the market. So the Derio Communications Hub is fully part of the strategy. I can take you to Marseille with the lowest latency on the market and diversely without going all the way up to Paris, for example. But also, do you know that we could bring the services to Geneva from Derio without going through Marseille or Paris, basically through the center of France? Or even further north, we can bring dark fiber or spectrum from Derio to London without going to Paris, but through the west coast of France. And so that's thanks to the cross-channel cable. So those are some examples of unique network expansion that we're focusing on, and to expand our footprint even further. I'm really pleased today, and thank you for that, to be part of the panel to bring our point of view on the Derio Communication Hub and its potential.
Thank you so much, Richard, for joining us. Art from Telia Carrier.
Yeah, hi, my name's Art Kazmierzak. I'm the Director of Network Development for Telia Carrier. Telia Carrier, if you're not familiar with us, is one of the largest Tier 1 global internet backbones, operating over 125 terabits of active edge traffic on a global basis. We also operate terabit scale transmission networks throughout Europe and North America, and also operate 10 subsea cables in Northern Europe connecting the Nordics and Baltics and the regions in that area. Telia Carrier has been a long time present network operator in Spain, including the Bilbao region, and also has been initial early adopter of building network into the Derio Communications Hub. Part of Telia Carrier's strategy is to continue to build out network capacity at scale into edge regions, and then empower the ecosystem of content and end users to flourish in these edge regions, and not only bring connectivity from hyperscaler and cloud regions in the core network connectivity areas, but also to enable connectivity at scale in the edge and enable applications such as what you're viewing right now, these collaboration and real-time applications that may have difficulty being cached at the edge and need real many-to-many connectivity. So again, we appreciate being part of the Derio ecosystem, and thank the panel for asking us to join today.
Absolutely, Art, and I think you used the right word here, ecosystem, right? I mean, it's very evident from our panelists here that to create a thriving ecosystem, every network provider, every entity has a role to play when it comes to, you know, truly forming a thriving interconnection ecosystem. Perhaps, you know, what I'd like to do is just to kind of kick things off, Carlos, if you can give us a bit of perspective on the background behind the Derio Communication Hub and how it came about, and really the strategic importance of it to Telxius when it comes to subsea cables and the data center convergence aspect.
Yes, well, indeed, we firmly believe in Telxius that the geostrategical position of the Iberian Peninsula it's really a masterpiece of what would be the need for connectivity in the region. I mean, Spain and Portugal are in the middle of the new deployments of submarine cable system in the transatlantic, and not only in the transatlantic, but towards Africa and the Middle East. So it seemed a no-brainer to have all these cables coming into the region and connecting Africa with the Middle East, Europe, and the contents in the US and Latin America. So apart from that, of course, we had the Marea cable system landing in Sopelana, 20 kilometers away from Derio, with 8 fiber pairs and a potential capacity up to 200 terabits that you have mentioned before. That is, well, it amounts to an equal connectivity as all the northern routes in the past that we had in the transatlantic. So apart from that, we also had a Grace Hopper cable landing in Derio, and so bringing another 12 fiber pairs with great potentiality. We have also our terrestrial backhaul connecting to the main hubs, IP hubs in Paris, in Madrid, in Barcelona. So all these elements were the ones creating the ecosystem that you have been mentioning. And of course, we had also the analysis of the different networks that we could be proposing to the final customers, and that are represented here by all these partners and colleagues that are participating with us today.
Absolutely, Carlos, and you're right. When you talked about over 200 terabits per second for the Marea cable, and just to put it in perspective, for those of us who have FiOS or fiber service at home, that gives us about 1 gig of capacity, and 200 terabits, we're saying 200,000 times more capacity than that 1 gig connection, and that's all possible through this subsea cable. I have a sample of a subcom cable which is similar to the Marea cable. You can see the fiber strands thinner than human hair. And what we're seeing is that more and more, Carlos, you're hearing from the industry about the convergence, right? I mean, is the new CLS in a data center, the value proposition of a carrier neutral facility, open access? Because at the end of the day, you bring that much traffic, it's very rarely all going to a single location. It needs to be distributed across to multiple locations. And in order to do that, you need to have multiple terrestrial providers, you need to have multiple routes, and that's where everyone from the ecosystem standpoint comes in, all the key partners who we have on the panel today. So, and this is an open question. I'd just like to hear your views from the panelists on what you are seeing as the key trends when it comes to that convergence and the importance of subsea and data centers.
Well, I think that this is a way of extending the power of subsea cables to drive into the business growth. Because the demand for content continues to explode globally, so too does the need for global bandwidth connectivity. So the hunger for bandwidth is not tipped to slow up soon, and that will mean that obviously we will need to serve all that. Okay, so the convergence of subsea and data centers is critical to extend that power of the subsea cables into the land, because if not, it's for nothing, right?
Absolutely. Anyone else wants to share their perspective?
I think we're seeing a couple of trends from the big industry movers in the data center space. We're seeing those guys moving into becoming either CLS operators or building interconnect locations very close to CLS cable landing facilities. So we've seen the big guys like Equinix, Interaction, EdgeConneX moving into that space, and then on the other side, we're seeing the traditional subsea cable operators like Telxius moving into the interconnect space. So obviously in Spain there's Telxius in Derio, but also the likes of Afrix in Barcelona building a similar type of facility there, multi-tenanted, open cable landing station and interconnect facility. And I mean, that's just two examples in Spain, but I think we're starting to see more of that pattern emerge across Europe, and I think we're going to see that continue going forward.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right, Steve. I mean, I've noticed that in Hong Kong. I've seen that obviously in Europe as well, and happening in some other parts of the world as well. Steve, I want to get your perspective when it comes to, from a long haul standpoint. Would you say that from an attractiveness to build in a carrier neutral facility as opposed to a single cable CLS for that matter?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've those of us that are old enough here, we've all been through the golden years of being involved in closed CLSs, which had a captive audience. I think we all know that those days are over now. That closed CLSs are a thing of the past. All cables now are moving towards an open interconnect hub. And when I look at kind of Exa's business, when we choose where we want to invest our capital, what sites we want to add to our network, where we want to grow our network, those kind of carrier neutral facilities are always very attractive to us, because historically we've always generated stable and good returns from making those investments into carrier neutral locations. So I think going forward, it's absolutely where we're going to be spending our money, finding locations like Derio and investing in those locations.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, go ahead. You just want to say something? Please.
Yeah, Vinay, I just wanted to say that I think that we all have to agree in the fact that all our customers are demanding seamless end-to-end solutions, and sometimes they require also these big colocation spaces, not just use or racks. I mean, these are pretty big customers with huge demands for cages or square meters. They don't ask anymore for space. They ask for energy, and the demands are over the kilowatts that they will be needing in the coming years. So when you have this type of customers behind, you need tier 3 specifications, because if not, they won't be contracting with you, and you need clean renewable energy, and you need all these elements that are now being demanded by the customers. And of course, having this type of facilities is mandatory for us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, Carlos, you bring up a great point in terms of this, when it comes to the features of the data center, from a data center perspective itself, you have to be at industry standards, so to speak, right? In terms of when someone is coming to you for the colocation space, they're expecting that the associated electrical and mechanical redundancies and resiliencies are built into your design when it comes to the underlying design, and then subsequently the operational best practices as well. I completely agree with you on that. Richard, can you talk a little bit from your perspective when it comes to diversity? How important is diversity, and really from your company standpoint, what's your diversity play from Sipartech's perspective?
From a diversity perspective, I mean, every landing station that comes in, as they become more like a carrier neutral location, there's a need to be able to get all the connections from either the landing station or the hub to the rest of the connectivity that need to be done. In Europe, it's mostly the flap, but as we get closer to those locations, it's kind of harder to get the diversity we need. So diversity play a big role, because the cable link station is part of that, and be able to get to the rest of the network where all the connection, the interconnection for the internet is done, is very important. As we all know, the internet needs to be always up, I would say 100% of the time, so there is no margin for error there.
Yeah, no, that's very true. I mean, that's sort of table stakes, right? It's expected that it's up 100% when it comes to the uptime. I also think that when we talk about capacity, when we talk about the hyperscalers getting into subsea. I think there is an extremely important element of terrestrial fiber when it comes to, in particular, dark fiber and the role that dark fiber plays in the digital infrastructure. So I'd like to just get a little bit more color on that from our friends from Lyntia and Euskaltel in terms of your strategy when it comes to building high capacity dark fiber networks into a location like the Telxius Derio location.
At Lyntia, when we connect a location like Derio with fiber, we provide capacity. We provide dark fiber in a redundant mode. We try to connect a point like Derio with different locations like Lisbon, like Madrid, like Barcelona, and also with the French border that is really close. And connecting with dark fiber, we also provide capacity with DWDM using several rings. So capacity, a lot of capacity and diversity, as my colleague from Sipartech was explaining, we understand that is a must.
Yeah, one thing to add to us, Jorge, is also an important thing is that diversity, physical different entrance to the hub. No, that's something that that's a requirement that we are having as Euskaltel in different internet hubs. And it's an important point, that physical diversity to the hub. Okay.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And I'm just curious to know from you guys, what are you seeing in terms of high capacity cables itself? Because we've started seeing in US now dark fiber cables almost to the point of it's no longer 864, it's 1728, and even 3,456 strand cable. I mean, it's a pretty thick single, so, a single cable with multiple ribbons. But what are you seeing, from that perspective in terms of, the capacity of the physical cable itself in Europe?
In our case, it's not so extreme like in the US. Here we install cables with 128, or that's the maximum, or 256. It's not here is not a requirement to go above that.
Now, Vinay, I'd say that we see those large fiber count cables in the metro, but not so much in the long haul. I agree that we tend to install 200 to 288 cores on most of our backbone routes. What we actually see as more important now is the age of the fiber, or the latest technology fiber, and so we see customers, particularly the hyperscalers, now asking for either the very latest types of G652 fiber, or in applications like this, where they're backhauling subsea cables, then they're asking for something like G654E, which is again a very modern fiber type. And we're starting to deploy those in Spain at the moment. But that, to me, that's the trend now. It's modern fiber rather than the
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, long haul is still restricted in terms of the fiber count itself, and you see more of those high count cables in the metro ring topology. Art, I'm just curious from Telia's perspective, running one of the leading tier 1 networks and IP backbones. What are you seeing in terms of some of the key trends when it comes to a location like Derio? What kind of services are customers buying? What's their general buying pattern and behavior in a location such as the Derio location, Art?
Yeah, sure. So, looking at the new investment in subsea cables and some of the new traffic flows we're seeing in Europe. You used to have a very high focus on the old flat markets, London, Paris, Amsterdam, and Frankfurt. And now what we're seeing is that the large cloud and application providers and a lot of the content is moving into these compute and storage facilities that are moving farther and farther south and further west in the south in Europe. So you see large developments in 100 megawatt type cloud centers regionally in some of the markets like Madrid and Marseille. And then you're looking at the traffic flows. So the traffic flows are now feeding off these Southern European cables and delivering diverse content and capacity into these regional cloud and compute facilities that are moving farther and farther to the edge. So you see more of a broad traffic flows going throughout Europe, but also you see locally in these markets like Derio, where you have over 1 million end users in the greater Bilbao region, wanting to have good connectivity to these applications. So you've got things like cloud gaming, where end users are expecting a very low latency and high quality of experience. And to be able to support those types of applications, or even some of the new developing applications you see in IoT and 5G and so forth, people are looking to have this edge compute and some edge content fill in these regions. So being one of the largest tier ones, we provide command and control and a lot of content and origin fill into these edge region. And then we're able to provide these end users a very good quality of experience because they're connecting to these applications locally. And these applications do have diverse connectivity into the regional availability zones for these big, cloud regions, but they're also able to get the applications that need that type of latency and response locally. And you bring the broadband operators and some of the mobile operators together where they can interconnect their networks locally in a region like this with the tier 3 availability and the availability of power, not just a cable landing station, but the ability to grow without having to rebuild new sites or to have an issue where you cannot deliver these types of services quickly. So, I think this ecosystem is enabled in the region, and we're seeing more and more of this growth of investment into the edge of the network.
Absolutely, Art. I think you hit on a couple of very, very important points, right? When it comes to the FLAP market, I mean, FLAP is a very mature market across the board. And in my slide that I put earlier, when I was talking about the existing interconnection internet hubs, as mentioned by telegeography, all four regions, cities, Frankfurt, London, Amsterdam, Paris are today established global internet hubs. And I think that diversity that we are talking about, Art, is so important. And hence, in fact, if you look at the genesis behind the Maria cable coming to Virginia, was really to diversify from New York, New Jersey, and the Florida region to have a mid-Atlantic landing. Speaking of internet hubs and Derio and diversity, I'd just like to open it up and get a perspective from the panelists. I mean, what do you guys think in terms of, is Derio the next internet hub for Southern Europe, given its importance of location, the dark fiber that exists there? I'll open it up for anyone who wants to take an initial shot at it.
I mean, Vinay, what is very important about Derio is, you just mentioned that, is the diversity. I mean, the diversity that is given to any of us, to all the carriers here. I mean, to have this totally new route from a few years ago that is giving full diversity, atomic diversity, if you want to call it like that, from the northern route is important. And also, it is giving us the possibility to create low latency routes between different destinations. And this is something that is also pretty much a plus, of course, and a demand from our customers. And potentially, Maria cable system is giving us a low latency route between Ashburn and Marseille. Also to mention that Telxius has a fiber ring between Virginia Beach, where the cable is landing, and Ashburn, where most of the data centers of the area are concentrated. Not only Ashburn, but Richmond. So this fact of low latency, adding to diversity, and the edge that was also commented previously, bringing the content closer to the final customers. I think this is a definitive idea behind the convergence between submarine and data centers. I mean, this type of submarine infrastructures are so huge that they cannot stand alone anymore with a simple cable landing station. You need to have something more, something that is enhancing the potentialities of these cables and giving them the full support that they need in land.
Absolutely, Carlos, you brought up a great point. I mean, it is established that Ashburn is the leading data center market globally. However, as the Richmond NAP, or the network access point, Carlos, as you know, is coming together, we have noticed that, again, because of the diversity, because of having the ability to support, in addition to the subsea cables, the terrestrial networks, the content distribution networks, the SDN networks, having the ability to support the co-location services and data center services in case of Henrico, in case of Richmond, the QTS data center, which is world's 4th largest data center and one of the most resilient data centers out there. I think that is obviously has been a key catalyst in developing that NAP. What I'd like to do is I'd like to go in the reverse order, as we started. So Art, I'll come to start with you. I want to just hear your perspective from the panelists. What do you think, looking ahead in the next 5 to 10 years for Derio? What are going to be the key success factors for Derio to be a thriving internet hub? Art, starting with you.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the diverse aspect. So having, again, ecosystem of local and regional players that are investing in fiber infrastructure and giving meshing and additional routes connecting not only the local region to some of the tier 1 markets, but also direct edge-to-edge market connectivity, will continue to grow. And you're going to continue to see more and more applications and content pushed down to the edge. So you're going to see this additional ecosystem flourish, and you're going to see the diversity in between these markets very important, and you'll see more investment in that area.
Thank you so much for that perspective. Richard, over to you.
From the regional, the local perspective, I think it's going to be great for that region to be able to have access to basically the US at this point, but the traffic is going to drive through Derio and get to the US, to the rest of the Iberian Peninsula and the rest of Europe. So it's going to become a big hub in terms of the connectivity that will come across Europe and basically the US. And that's going to grow as we just came back. I mean, we're still in the pandemic, but the more and more people working from home, all the IoT growing, so many. So the market is growing so much in terms of the need for data. We're going to need more of those local hubs all around the world.
Okay, absolutely. Hord, from Lyntia, can you give your perspective on the key success factors?
Yeah, I think that would be connectivity. Connectivity from Derio to different cable landing stations, to Lisbon, to Valencia, to Barcelona, to Marseille, to the Danone cable, as well as connectivity with the different POPs and data centers all over Spain, and that is where we are focused.
Absolutely. Connectivity is key, no doubt about that. Steve, what do you think are going to be the key success factors?
Yeah, as we talked about, it's an ecosystem, right? That the more subsea cables land in the area, the more long haul providers are going to invest in building into Derio. But it also works the other way, that for Derio to continue to be attractive to subsea cables, it needs to have the backhaul connectivity and that rich interconnectivity ecosystem there. So it's the subsea and the terrestrial are interrelated. You know, they both have to keep growing for one to be a success, for the other to be a success. I think we're told that there's going to be another 40 or 50 transatlantic cables built in the next 10 to 15 years. I think it's reasonable to expect that a good percentage of those are going to continue to land in the same similar coastal region, maybe not exactly in Sopolina, but along that coastline. So it's reasonable to expect that the cables are going to keep, the submarine cables are going to keep coming. The terrestrial cables will continue to keep being built, which means it's then about scalability. You know, is there enough power? Is there enough space in Bilbao to support all of this infrastructure that we expect to come here in the next 10, 15 years? And I imagine there is.
Okay, great. Yeah, absolutely. I think the subsea and terrestrial obviously are going to go sort of hand in hand, and would like to get some key success factors next from Goyo from Euskaltel.
Yes. Our perspective is that the bandwidth, the demand of bandwidth will increase dramatically in the following years. For example, Euskaltel as a carrier, we are deploying a new FTTH technology, XTS, that technology will enable the next generation of fixed broadband services, often in speeds up to 10G. That will increase the bandwidth, the demand of bandwidth, and what we think, and not only in fixed, only mobile, we have 5G. So at the end, how we see the future, we see that little by little, the network architecture will evolve to connect elements like data centers, proximity data centers, directly multiplying that the active network, through network edges. So that will come. I don't know if in how many years, but probably we'll have new hubs or new data centers, proximity data centers with edge computing in the following years, due to that high demand. And for that, the local carrier, the local operator, and the infrastructure, the local infrastructure is very important. In our case, we have more than 4,000 buildings, spaces in cities and villages that we can use for those proximity data centers in edge computing. So yeah, we are prepared for that as a local carrier.
Excellent. Thank you for giving us that perspective. Jamie from Colt, key success factors in your opinion?
Well, I think most of the things have been already mentioned, but it's clear that submarine cables are carrying 99% of the global traffic, and well, going into the Iberian Peninsula is becoming an essential place for diversifying the connectivity. So that means that investment from content providers highlight the importance of the special terrestrial connectivity that can distribute that content to the end consumer, right? Colt is building now a new link between Madrid and Paris to the Pyrenees, just to reinforce the message that is critical, all that type of connections to bring us. Goyo has mentioned all these bandwidth to the end customers. This bandwidth is feeding back each other in terms that applications and systems are consuming more bandwidth, and so we need to be able to offer more bandwidth each time. So it's a never-ending story that is going to grow in many senses. And talking about Derio specifically, I want to mention that it's a good exercise to try to spread all these hubs instead of concentrated in the same places. We're talking about the FLAP area. Now we know Madrid is in the next position, is the 5th city that in terms of this type of business regarding data centers and so on. So I think that spreading this type of places is becoming more and more important because allows customers to be closer to that, and also brings better connectivity, latencies, and better conditions for the communications in general.
Absolutely, and I think, you know, if I was to answer the same question, I would say that not only what every one of you said is absolutely correct, but I think that entire ecosystem and moving it forward is a key factor to all the different players, including all of you and other from the network community being part of it to build a thriving ecosystem and to progress it further. I think the amount of data generated is going to continue to increase, the amount of capacity will continue to increase, and these strategic locations like the Derio will be key for distributing internet traffic and building thriving ecosystems. Carlos Casado, I was saving the final words for you, so I'm going to hand it back to you for some closing remarks and final words, please.
Yes, well, I just wanted to say that the great strength of Derio is having this panel available. I mean, it's counting with all these tremendous experts and their companies behind, because this is demonstrating that Derio is an open, carrier-neutral space with all potential available services in it. And I wouldn't have any doubt if I needed the space in the north of Spain. That would be the place, having all the local, national, pan-European best IP tier 1 providers like ourselves and our colleagues from Telia, and well, the potentiality to reach any destination through the lowest latencies. So I am sure that this will bring new investments into the area, and that we will have for sure new cables landing nearby Derio in the north of Spain or south of France. Of course, we have to mention that there is also a Lyntia over there. So the ecosystem is created, and that was Telxius' purpose to create this, having a very clear idea about its openness and its neutrality. And now that is done, we are ready to welcome all the customers of our partners and ours also, of course.
Absolutely. On behalf of Telxius, I'd like to thank all the panelists and the speakers, everyone in the audience for being with us today. We had a great discussion. Monica, last words for you to close the session, please.
Thank you, Vinay, and thanks to all the panel participants. I really think that a lot of interesting conclusions have been able to arise from this subsea data center convergence panel. I hope you all have found it interesting as well, and I would like to thank the audience for your time and your participation in this webinar. Please accept our apologies for the delay in the start, and take into account the time of the year that we are at. I would like to take the opportunity to wish you all a lovely Christmas and best wishes for the new year. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Muchas gracias a todos.
Gracias.
Gracias. Felices fiestas.